Hi, everyone. Several years I gave an artist talk and I teared up in it, and it was like one of the most awful experiences of my life. So I've decided that I'm going to do that again tonight. So if it's emotional and it's really important for me to share it. So just like forgive me if I need a few minutes to like gather myself together. And also that's why I'm going to read it because otherwise I'll just like lose track. Um, So this February, I started getting ready for the show. I had 5 drawings done. I like really had my shit together. I am not a person who prepares for a show early, and it's been a thing I've been trying to change for years. I want to have a light, like laid back, relaxed, spend a lot of time getting a show together. I'm looking at you, PETA. And it never happens. It's always last minute. It's always panic. It's always rush. I always feel like I don't have as much work as I want to have. And so like I was like, this is the year where I'm gonna have my stuff together. And then I woke up one day with like a weird pain, and I went to my physical therapist, and she was like, you need to go to the doctor. And I got some imaging done, and I had just a massive tumor in my abdomen. And it had caused no symptoms until it wrapped itself around my kidney and it cut the kidney off. And that's why all of a sudden I was having pain. And my physical condition deteriorated like pretty quickly. I had to stop working. I was like just maintaining on opioids. And then about 6 weeks later, I was diagnosed with a really rare cancer. And the biopsy took over a month to come back. So I had plenty of time to feverishly like research every possible thing that it could be, because they're like, we don't know what this is, but it could be this or this or this or this. And then when it finally came back, it was the worst case scenario of all of the choices they had given me. It was leiomyosarcoma. And the biopsy came back about 3 days before I had a surgery, and it was just this big, huge surgery, and it went really well. They felt like they got everything. They had clear margins. Like, we went into surgery not knowing if they could remove it all. We didn't know, like, they thought I might have to have an ostomy. Like, we didn't know how it would be, but it like went great. And within another month, I was like starting to heal up. They did more imaging. They couldn't find any metastasis. Like, I was like suddenly feeling hopeful, and I was elated, and I was just like so grateful that I was alive. And I spent like a lot of time when I was a younger person not being suicidal, but being like not really wanting to be alive, not really enjoying my life, and just kind of like slogging through. And it has like, I slowly came out of that as an adult, and this made me like look at my life and realize that I actually do want to be here, and that like I have this wonderful community and a wonderful partner and my family, and I have fun. I feel lucky to be here, and I really hadn't realized, like, it was so gradual. I hadn't realized how much, like, over the last several years, like, I like my life. And so I was like, just like feeling so good, and then all of a sudden everything felt like it kind of crashed down on me. I was tired. I got really resentful. I was like, how am I supposed to live knowing that this can come back at any time? Like, the recurrence chances are high. Unlike other cancers, after 5 years, your chance for recurrence gets more instead of less. So it's like you don't get that experience of like, you're 5 years, you ring the bell, you're done. And it's rare, so it's like there's no one to talk to. You don't get to talk to other people with this cancer. And so I was feeling really isolated, and my first CT scan came back with no metastasis, but with signs of a possible breast cancer. I was having like really intense symptoms that led to another unrelated surgery in the fall, and all of my family was like holding me together, and I could see them neglecting their own lives. And so I was like guilty, and everything was hard, and I was just like so tired. I couldn't like get past the fatigue. And then there's this moment when I was like so tired, and my kid was like, he just needed a real meal that I could cook that would have vegetables that he would eat. And so I like went to the grocery store, and I was like moving through molasses, like I'm gonna just get through this day, and I'm gonna feed the kid and like be a better parent, because of course I've been a horrible, neglectful parent for months. I like went to the Safeway on Galley, and I walked out with my things, and it was like the sky was on fire. There was this like sunset with all the bottoms of the clouds were bright orange and bright pink, like incredible, like fake sunset, like a Lars Lieber photograph or something. And it was so beautiful. And I drove up to this little park that I knew was high where I could see it, and there was another couple in the park, and we were all just like staring at it and taking photographs. And it was just like such a stark contrast to me being like all wrapped up in myself and my own like confusion and pain. And then it's like, look at this beauty, like that's here all the time. So I feel like that this show for me is like about that, where the dark things can be so dark, and yet there's always going to be like this thing being beautiful somewhere that you can find and that you can use to get through. And so I feel like I've kind of like leaned into that with this show, with like using a lot more black and a lot more contrast and more like storms. And also like a lot of times when I'm painting, I'm like working from a photograph, and I'm trying to do what is closest that I can do that makes it as close to the photograph as possible with my really limited color palette. And with a lot of these, I kind of like threw that out the window, and it was like, no, what if you do just like a bright red sky instead, like of this blue sky? And I feel like it's really, I don't know, it's pushed me more, and I feel like my work is stronger because of this year. Um, so yeah, I'm really proud. I'm really happy. There was a moment when I met with Abby in I think maybe June or July, because I was like, I don't know if I could do a show this year. I haven't started. And she was like, it's up to you, or we could bring a second artist, like do what you want. And I committed to it. And I'm so glad I did, because like it's been really good for me. It was last minute, but it was a lot less panic than it usually is getting ready for the show. And I'm more excited to keep working than I usually am after a show. So yeah, thanks for like sticking with me instead of saying, let's just put this off, because I came in here and I was like, I don't know what to do. And then I usually in an artist talk mostly about my materials, and I just want to give a shout out to my partner Chris's sister, who sent me this volcanic ash from Nebraska, from Ashfall fossil site, and it's like the volcano erupted and buried all of the dinosaurs, rhinos, and she got me these bags of the ash that they're digging out from around the rhinos, and it's like really, really sparkly. It's the gray, the light gray in that. And I've used it in a whole bunch of them. It's just like, it's really fine and it's really sparkly. And when you mix it with the coal dust, which is also sparkly, it's just like a dream to work with. So it's nice to also be working with a new, exciting material. Does anyone have any questions? For me, it's always about trying to get a certain type of sky right. And like, this is like, I finally achieved that kind of like weird misty thing that happens with the sky. So yeah, but it was also just like about working, because when I'm working, like I don't have to think, you know, and that's great. And that's really good for me. I think it was just like less like frantic. Like the focus is usually more like frantic. And even though it was like ticking down the time and I was spending so much time working on it, usually I am like in a panic. And for some reason I wasn't panicked. And I think it's maybe because like I spent months having a panic attack, and it's like there is no more panic. Like it's gone. And also like, I don't know, I had my last surgery 1 week ago today, so I'm like still like not, I haven't even processed everything. This has made me like remember how things were in the spring that I just haven't even thought of since then. Yeah, but it's so good for me to work. You know, I usually put on a book that I've already read on tape, or like music or something to like clog up the word part of my brain. And it's so nice to be able to have been forced to spend that time painting, because I don't think I would have if I didn't have a show. Usually I do, so I'll put together like 3 or 4 or 5 drawings, and then I do them one at a time after that. And this one, I did that middle one, and in June, it was like really soon after my surgery, but like when I was stable enough to like live a life again. My great uncle and aunt were having a 50th wedding anniversary in Galveston, Texas, because that's what they got married 50 years ago. And my aunt flew me out, and so there were like, I don't know, 20 or 30 family members for just a few days. And it was like during my really elated phase, I was like, I'm alive and excited. And I took all these pictures. We took like a night walk, and there are 2 more beach photos over here that are all from that. And I did that middle one, not knowing how it would be, but those, it's almost all coal dust and the volcanic ash. And like some materials are really hard to work with, and both of those are really easy to work with. And it was just like, it went really well and easy, and it was fun. And it was like, I've never done any like night anything before. And I like enjoyed it so much that I decided to do 2 more, even though I wasn't sure if it was really, I just wasn't sure if I wanted that much of the show to just be black. But I'm really glad I did it because they were fun.
I would say that when she introduced you, said, "I'm like, well, I just went to Palm Springs and I don't." And I was here on a Friday night. I just walked up and, oh my God, it's dirt. And I just love it so much. So I don't know, it's really good.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm also just so pleased, especially in the sunlight. These 3 are like so sparkly. They really make me happy. Let's say like everything but that volcanic ash I get myself. And then I sieve it really fine. I do very minimal grinding, usually using a blender because I'm really lazy about physical labor. And then section by section, I put down clear acrylic medium and then sprinkle the dirt on top. And then once it's dry, and the whole thing is covered, I brush everything off because there's like a bunch of extra. And then it's like sandpaper. But yeah, like think of it as kind of like a glorified paint by number, because if you like try and like layer things on, the texture gets wonky and weird. And I do like end up repainting sections sometimes, but if you, I have one at home that I never got to a spot I like, and it's like if the more times you repaint, the thicker it gets, and you can like see this like this section is like you know, an eighth of an inch higher than everything else. So it's really, you really have to be like locked in, I feel like, because you have to get it right the first time. And also I am getting better at doing repairs, and I'm as it dries, like especially in areas like this, you're doing like little tiny bits, and as it dries, it shrinks a little bit and it pulls away, and then you have all these tiny little white bits that you have to go in and fill in afterwards. But I'm getting better at all of that. So if you're painting a different thing,
Yeah.
you can't see a scene, but if you like paint part of a sky and then continue and there's not a color or a shade break, it makes a line. And you know, acrylic like films over. So with the sky, I'm like putting some on and then I'm smoothing it out and then I'm covering it and then I'm like drawing it out further bit by bit because it will dry too fast. And it's like it's hard to think about, and the skies are where I have the most problems, where it doesn't turn out where I think it does, and it's because it's like you have to cover a lot. As soon as the dirt's on there, it changes color because it gets wet, and then you're not sure if you're shading from light to dark. If yeah, and I'm mixing most of my colors, and I'm like I don't know if I'm getting the gradation right, and yeah. So. Yeah.
The meditative qualities of it clearly are there.
Yeah, yeah.
So first of all,
I think it's just so beautiful and so changeable and so different all the time. And then like I I don't have blue, and that's like the main color of the sky, so it's like an endless opportunity to try and figure out how do you make something read as sky when it can't be blue. This, the white, that's volcanic ash from Salida. Yeah, I can't find any more. This lady gave it to me like 15 years ago out of her backyard, and I drove to her house. I followed her at night to her house, and like she let me like get a gallon of it, and I'm almost out. And I did not write down her address, and I did not write down her name. And my geologist partner has taken me to Salida, and we've driven around like a creep in neighborhoods, slowly. And he's looked at all the maps, and we've like gone on hikes, and it's all gray. So there's gonna be a moment, maybe in another 6 months or so, when I have a panic attack or break down and buy it, because you can buy it. You can buy like pumice that's white. I'm hoping not to get to that point. I've even like joined the Salida groups and said, "Hey, does anyone know?" Like, and then, well, first of all the locals are like, "You will be cursed if you take anything." But also, I got really, really sick because I went during the volcano, and I was too sick to make the hike to that beach. So I ended up not ending up at the green beach. This, it started because I went to school kind of near where Georgia O'Keeffe spent her years in Texas, and I went to Palo Duro Canyon, and I was like, I'm gonna make oil paint out of this. Like, why are we using fake pigments? We could do this. And then I realized very quickly that when you're making oil paint, the like degree to which you have to grind that down is like hours of grinding, and I'm just not. I'm just too lazy for that. And so then I just like started like morphing. I mixed it with oil, I mixed it with wax, I mixed it with acrylic, and then very slowly over like 10 or 15 years, I finally got to this. I kind of came up with it while knowing that those existed, but yeah, I really did come from it originally like thinking I was going to get to something more of a traditional medium um, like this. I would say like since about in 2007, I kind of got to like this technique, but I was still doing abstract. I was still really afraid of figurative like work. And then I'm trying to think, maybe around 2010, I did my first really bad landscape, out of my head, and then started working from photographs around that time. And since then, I've been pretty obsessed with. I mean, I know it's not photorealistic, but getting it to be as close to what's actually happening in a photo as I can. In my last show that I did with Peta, who's sitting in the back, um, we did a show of children, and I still have some images that I want to paint of children. Um, I'm doing a show with Ludell Walter in July, and she's like coming from a whole different area, so I'm really hoping to find a way for us kind of stretch towards each other and see what happens. Um, but yeah, I want to do a little more figurative work, and then yeah, I still have a lot more clouds that I want to do, and I have some um, harder cloud paintings like that I know before I couldn't have done that I'm hoping that maybe I can get those those moments that we have here where the clouds like kind of come over the mountain and you almost can't tell where one starts and the other. Like I'd really like to get to where I can do something like that, but you can still read what's happening. Thanks, you all.